Right.
Well, thanks, guys. That'll give me a lot to feel good about.
Well, I love that Abby has become a real spitfire and learned how to speak up for herself and all the people that she loves and that are close to her. Do you just absolutely love that they did that for you, that you're not meek and mild anymore?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would say I was meek and mild, but I think that everyone
now.
I think that everyone sort of goes through a time in their life where they have this evolution where they start to sort of like own their decisions more, and they feel more validated in who they are, and they seek others' approval less, and they just sort of, it's growing up, you know. I mean, I think we're constantly changing and transforming ourselves, and Abigail was young and just getting out of college when I started, and, you know, going through a lot of turmoil as you transition into becoming a woman. And I think the beauty of, like, the journey that I've had with her is she has gained this strength. And like I said, being a little bit older than her, I can definitely, you know, that resonates with me. I've gone through that myself, and she's in a good place now that she's sort of gone through that. So it's definitely for the better. And yes, I was joking, but I'm totally happy that they've started to give her a little bit of her strength back. So
Right. And especially now that her mom needs her, you know, with everything she's going through. So, and then, of course, the thing with Cameron.
Right. I think that's the interesting thing about, like, I was just mentioning this to a friend. That's the interesting thing about, like, your parents and your relationship. There's, like, that place where you're older and you realize that there's a role reversal at some point. And, you know, they become your friends, and you start to realize, like, wow, they're fallible too, and they make mistakes, and they're human. And, wow, it's just such an interesting concept. And with Abby and her mom, there's a definite role reversal, I think, right off the bat in the very beginning, because she's trying to protect her and keep the family together for so many years when her dad would always bail. So it's nice to see her mom with, you know, someone and finally happy, even though it's not her dad.
Right, exactly. And they wrote the story well, too, where you were accepting of him and realizing that your dad was gone and your mom needed to be happy. I mean, I love that they put that in there, and not that you fought it.
Right, I agree.
So what was it like the first time seeing Cameron up there on his dancing gig?
Well, wasn't that fun, ladies?
Yes.
Like, we hired this new
natural.
guy. He's been an underwear model before, and then sure enough, he had his shirt off in, like, the first week, and I was like, oh, look at that. Isn't he? He's such a sweetheart, though. But it was really fun for us. I mean, that whole Magic Mike story, or that whole Magic Mike film that came out a little bit ago was like, it's just it's so fun and such a great concept. And I think that Nathan played it with such ease and grace, and really, it was really fun for all of us. But at the same time, you know, it's a big storyline for him. And but yeah, I mean, the whole cast was kind of like loving it. It was a really fresh, new story. So we enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, well, I saw him dancing, and I thought, I think he's done this before.
I know. That's what I thought.
I'll never tell. No, it's not. I mean, Nathan is naturally, like, he has such a good sense of his body and his placement, and, you know, he was never a dancer, but he has, like, a good sense of movement, and I, you know, was trained as a dancer, so we had so much fun with that storyline, and it was nice because it was sort of on the heels of him just coming to the show, so it really loosened everyone up, and yeah, it was great. I'm glad you're enjoying it, and if you guys stay tuned, I promise you'll be, like, in shock and loving it even more in a couple of days.
Well, we just saw what's coming up next week with Galen Gehring and Eric Martzoff.
Yes.
So.
Isn't that
fun, Christian?
I was like, how do we do this without putting Eric Martzoff in there? I mean, come on. And then sure enough, it happened. Like, well, there you go.
Yeah. And I'm going to get to see them right after that airs, so I'll be able to ask them about it, too.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, she's going to that Atlanta thing that they have going.
Good.
So.
Yeah. To ask them to show you some moves.
Right?
Yeah.
And she's going to bring a video recorder.
Tell him, you can tell him I told you it was okay. I want to see it.
I will totally tweet it to you.
Yeah.
You should. Do a video of you guys all doing it together and then send it out.
That would be cool, Sabina. You can be in the middle and they could dance around you. So there you can do it that way.
I had some pictures like that last year of Eric and Sean dancing next to me on either side, what I call my stud sandwich. So probably you doing that again.
Now, Kate, with your dancing experience, what if they had decided to put Abby up there? How would you feel about that?
Well, they did put Abby up for a second. I don't know if you guys saw last week.
Yes, I saw that. Mm-hmm.
Backstage. Yeah. And that was really fun for me. I think that I've been a little bit, with Abigail, it's such a funny thing. Like, you want the character to be similar to who you are, but at the same time, like, I really enjoy that Abigail is sort of this bumbling fool who is, a little bit klutzy. And, I mean, it's really interesting if you look back at the storylines. Since I started on the show 2 years ago, every single relationship I have starts with me running into this person. Like with Chad, the first time I ever had a scene with him, I bumped into him and he spilled my coffee. And then the first time I ran into Austin, he was running and we bumped into each other. And then the first time I ran into Cameron, I was coming out of the coffee shop or Brady Pub or something, and we bumped into each other and I broke his picture frame. And so it's like definitely this character. It's like sort of a thing that I love about her, but so I didn't want to make it like too dancey, and but it was really fun for me. If they ever did something like that, I think I would try to really keep consistent with that, because maybe she'll train and get better, but I would really like to keep it because I just think it's such an interesting part of her.
Definitely. And I mean, I didn't realize how many times you had actually run into somebody until you just said it. I mean, of course, I've seen all the scenes, but yeah, now that you point it out, it's like, oh, yeah.
I know. I'm keeping track now. Keep running into people's life, trying to see if the same thing will happen, and it just doesn't.
I was wondering how you got the part of Abby Deveraux.
Well, I auditioned for Days of Our Lives previously a couple times, and I kept in really good contact with Marnie, and I graduated from Pepperdine in 2009, I think, and then a year later, when Ashley Benson left, they called and said, you've been in for us a couple times now, and we know what you can do, and we want you to come on board. So it was a really fun experience for me with a great payoff. I loved the cast every time I had auditioned. As I mentioned before, I tested with Casey Diedrich, and I mean, it's funny, I tested with him with dark hair, and he totally remembers that, but that role they didn't end up creating that character, and then I think it was like a year later, they called me and brought me in for Abigail, so it was really fun.
And, I just ran across a picture of you with dark hair and never realized that you had dark hair before.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, when you test with somebody, do they give you a script or do they have you improvise?
No, yeah. It's just like it's sort of the last process in the audition process. So you're doing a scene that you're doing a scene with the other actor.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I always wondered about that, how they do that. So that's interesting, because then you have to right away get into how you feel the character is going to be.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of your improvising part.
Yeah, I mean, I think you definitely, when you get the audition, you create a character going into it, and then you're called back whether or not, depending if they like your character. And so what you create is up to you. That's sort of the fun, I think.
That is fantastic. Yeah, I was kind of wondering, I guess you've definitely made Abby your own, and I was kind of wondering how you've embraced playing the character of Abby.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit? What do you mean? In since I've been there, or you mean?
Well, I know what I was going to ask. I was going to say, did you ever watch previous, as far as what the previous Abby was like, and then kind of elaborate on that, or did you not want to watch any of that and just go with whatever you felt the character was going to be?
Right. Yeah. No. I tried to stay pretty. I mean, I had already dyed my hair blonde to fit this character, and I felt like, you know, the work that I needed to do was to really just research more of, like, the backstory, you know, what the relationships were and who characters were to her, like, you know, Kayla, and who, you know, what the significance was with Jack because he wasn't there yet. So researching that and researching really more of the characters than specifically Ashley Benson's performance as Abigail, because I think one of the dangers when you're a recast is, you know, you want to play, sometimes I think people want to play exactly what the other person played so that it's not this drastic change. However, you really have to trust that the reason why they cast you was because those similarities were already there in the character that you created for this role. And, you know, just like life, I mean, we're all going to bring our own different spices and different flavors to, you know, to that. And so I really wanted to try and just, you know, bring my own spin to it. But, and you can't, I mean, I think when I first started, everyone was sending me letters saying, you know, fans are, you know, really loyal and you'll never have our approval. And then within a month, once people sort of settle into it, it's like, okay, we totally love this. And they recognize, you know, oh, here are some differences. And I love that your Abigail has more of this. And they accept you, I think, more when you just embrace that it is a different person, you know?
Right. I have to say I agree with that, and I love you as Abigail. I do think you're doing a phenomenal job, and I look forward to so much more from you.
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome. I also watched a YouTube for the Day of Days events with you and Molly Burnett being backup dancers for Bill Hayes, and it was so funny, but he did such a great job with I'm Too Sexy.
Oh, that was really fun. Yeah, we had a good time with that.
What's it like for you to go to an event like that?
You know, it's just really, it's a wonderful experience. I mean, any chance that we have to meet our fans is always so special to us. And I know the first event I ever went to, the first time someone asked me for my autograph, I asked them, I don't even remember who it was, but I have it on a piece of paper in my, you know, sentimental box somewhere around here. But I asked them for their autograph, too, because I wanted to remember that, you know, that moment.
That was sweet.
It's really, yeah, it was just something I had done. But it's really cool. You know, you get to see people that are really passionate about storylines and excited to meet you and that have followed, you know, people before I even started and feel like you're a little piece of their lives. You know, a lot of people the interesting thing about our show is it does have such a legacy, and so a lot of them, you know, our fans tell such an interesting story just by being fans, you know. Like, I have met so many people who are with, you know, 3 generations. Like, well, I started watching because of my grandma, and, you know, well, my mom watched it, and then I watched it, and it's sort of a very centering thing for families sometimes, which is a really cool thing.
Exactly. And I think I can say the same story. My grandmother, my mother, my aunts, you know, even a good friend of mine that was a couple years older than I was, I went by her house one time. I was in grade school, and she was watching all my children, and I started to talk to her, and she's like, shh, my story's on. I'm like, what are you talking about, you know? But then I sat down and I started watching it with her. And Days I started watching actually through my aunt, because my mom and my friend and my grandmother were into the ABC one. So, and eventually I took up watching them all the channels. So I can't say I don't support my soaps.
Well, he's taken over your life. I'm sorry about that.